Hello, friends. Welcome back to Honoring the Journey. I'm Leslie Niece, your host, and today, oh my word, you're probably going to recognize this guy. Maybe he was with you when you were an evangelical with Caedmon's Call. You may have heard him then. Maybe you've heard him as you've sort of unraveled some things along your journey and kind of helping you through some of your doubts in your faith. Either way, I'm like giddy and excited because we get to talk to and hear from the lovely human Derek Webb, a singer-songwriter, a guy who just released an album that I listened to today, actually, on my way back from Salt Lake. And there were a few tears, not gonna lie. It was so beautiful. And I cannot wait to hear more about the album, but also your journey. Derek, welcome to Honoring the Journey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. This is going to be so much fun. So,
Yeah.
um, let me think. Is there a story maybe you can share so we can get to know you as a human being?
Yeah.
Aside from your music, aside from all of that, is there a story you can tell me? Something maybe from your childhood, one of your favorite memories that kind of you go to when you're having a rough day, or something that
Hmm.
feel really safe and warm and comfortable?
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question. Everybody who's listening needs to think about this question and should have a ready
Right?
answer.
Right? So
Um,
good. And
yeah.
it's okay if you take forever, I can edit out the time that takes
Oh,
to
no,
go.
no. I hate editing.
Yeah.
I would hate to make you, do any work on this thing. I think probably, like, most of my memories so when I was younger, I was not good at anything that was being measured or valued when I was, like, single digits and, elementary, middle school. I was not good at, like, like, social and school and sports. Like, that seems to be the thing that is being measured and valued, and you're
Mm,
kinda sizing kids up, and kids are sizing each other up basically based on these things when you're young, and I was terrible at all those things. The one thing I did have was music, and I found a guitar. My mom is probably the most freakishly gifted musician I know, and she, primarily plays piano, but, she had a guitar in her closet that she always meant to learn to play,
mm.
and I found it just rummaging around the house one day, and when I was, like, 6 or 7 years old. I found it, I pulled it out, and I started playing with it, and it was I was so grateful to have found something. It was fun, it was easy, and for me, it made sense to
Wow.
me, and so I found music really early, and so all of my childhood, like, a lot of my childhood memories are, from all the way from those single digits all the way up through high school, are basically me sitting in my room with headphones on, learning songs, on guitar, and just hours. Now I barely got out of high school because I was so obsessively focused on learning to play the guitar and then eventually learning to write songs. And so, I mean, I've that's been with me a long time. And a
Mm,
lot of those early memories are like just the safety of my room with my headphones on and my guitar and just like listening to
mm.
music and learning it on my guitar. That's like, it's still kind of what I do, but
That amazes me because, like, I am not I mean, I love music. It is such a big part of my life, but I have no idea how to do it. I tried to take piano when I was young because
yeah,
this girl named Joanna was, like, really good at it, and she made
yeah,
me mad, and I was like, "I'm gonna get better," and I could not figure out how to read the music,
right.
and so really chopsticks was about as far as I got, but,
Well,
you
and
know.
that's enough. I mean, you clearly have, like, extreme gifting in other areas. I mean,
Yes,
I
exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah.
it's not.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
not hard on myself about it, but
good, okay.
I'm always so amazed because,
Mm,
like, my kids are very musical, which I don't know
yes.
where they get it from. Me and my husband are both like, "Nope, it didn't happen,"
That's
but
funny, yeah.
our kids, they just pick up stuff. Like, they just,
Yeah,
"Hey, I feel like learning how to play that," and then 5 minutes later, they're
incredible.
doing a concert,
Yeah. Well,
and
my dad
so
could barely play the radio, but my mom was so talented at it that
yeah.
I got, so much from her. But at the same time, it's like nowadays, the amazing thing about growing up in the world that we live in today, there are a lot of not amazing things about it, but one of the amazing things, and my wife and I even obviously benefit from this, but I mean, I've got teenage kids, and I know they do too, and probably yours do. It's crazy how easy it is to, if you decide there's a thing you want to learn how to do or about, you can instantly do that. Like, you
Yeah,
can go on YouTube pretty
it's
much
true.
and learn it and take on what, like, nearly a college course worth of information and learn to do stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah,
So much
yeah.
fun that you can have a wild idea and you can immediately try it out. Like the world's so much bigger and more open than it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. Well, okay. So what I like to do on this podcast, Derek, is really honor your life journey. And I like to start back, and it's okay if you have dogs. I have dogs
I
too.
do. I have
So I
sweet
hear
dog.
them and I love them and they are welcomed co-hosts. So
I
don't
will
worry about that.
I will try to vigorously mute.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I um I am thinking, okay, so Derek, little Derek who wasn't great at sports or, some of the things you mentioned, but was good at a guitar. Did you grow up in church with your parents? Was this something that your family pursued together?
So I grew up in the South. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
I live in Nashville now. I lived in Texas in between, but I lived in the South, growing up in the South, which means, of course, we grew up going to church.
Of course. Yeah.
It wasn't especially we weren't especially serious about it. It felt more like a thing that, but we did it. I say we weren't serious about it, but we literally went every single Sunday, and I definitely went to like youth group stuff, and
Mhm.
I also went to school from elementary all the way through, I guess, through the 6th grade. It's just a private school for the big United Methodist Church where we went. It was just a big, big,
Nice.
big church, and they had a school through the 6th grade. And I went there. I went there all the way, so
Mhm.
yeah, I was there like a lot. I was there, and I grew up taking like there was a Bible class, and we had chapel one morning a week every week. And so I absolutely grew up with that, with the language and the presumption of all that, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so did you serve in music when you were a teenager and in like the youth band, or did you do any of that stuff
Right.
that I think a lot of people might relate to?
Well, exactly. You know what I didn't, and for a couple of reasons. One
Oh,
is the church. So the big United Methodist Church that I went to, Christ United Methodist Church, if you need to know, in Memphis, Tennessee, up on Poplar. It's still there. It's huge. It's a huge place. And uh they it was very traditional. It was just it was it like robes and choirs, and it so there was not a, and this was in, so I'm 50. So like this was long enough back that like we were not yet, the church was not yet struggling with the whole seeker sensitive, like, do we
mm,
need to adapt a service
right.
during the morning for younger people or older people? And when cultural preference invaded the evangelical church in America, and we started splitting our congregations up according to what they prefer and their musical styles they prefer, which is nuts to me. That feels like
Yeah.
the opposite of church work, in my opinion. But anyways, not that I have a dog in that particular fight at this point, but at that point, there weren't contemporary services. There was no opportunity for somebody like me
Mm,
who played primarily electric guitar at that time. There was no place to plug in, so it
mm,
was never a church thing. Um, and there wasn't even really kind of contemporary music. I mean, there was Christian radio. We did have
mhm.
that,
Yeah.
but this was all way before the internet and, all that sort of, so it's like there wasn't even playing music for like your job or becoming an artist and being able to put out records and do that as a career was like, my parents were very supportive in as far as they were able to be,
Mhm.
understanding the world as it was at that time, because there was no career path for a guitar player, just like a guy in his bedroom playing guitar. There was no career path for that. And so they couldn't imagine it. And they were encouraging, but they were like, well, you'll be the doctor or the lawyer who plays guitar. And,
Yeah.
um, but that's obviously not what happened. But there was kind of no place. There was no place other than finding other young musicians to like play with and jam with and maybe start a band with. And even that didn't really start for me till around, till like high school, junior high.
Mhm.
So for a long time, I was just I just kind of hung out and played by myself, and there was no church connection for me.
Right, right. So when you started playing with Caedmon's Call then, how did you guys get together? What was that about?
Yeah. So I had gone to high school with a guy named Aaron Tate, and Aaron was about 2 years older than me, and we were both involved in Young Life, which is like a
Mhm.
high school targeted kind of parachurch organization. And I was pretty involved in Young Life during high school. So was Aaron. And so we kind of knew each other. We were friends. He went off to college. He went to a Texas college in Fort Worth and TCU, Texas Christian University. And when he went there, and I did not know that Aaron wrote songs or was musical, especially. I didn't know that about him. I didn't know he was this crazy gifted songwriter. He was just a good friend of mine. And he went off to college, and when he got there, he met a guy named Cliff Young. Cliff was also from Houston, but I did not know him. He lived on a different side of town, and he and Aaron met. And they kind of that's where Caedmon's was kind of born, was when Aaron and Cliff met, because Aaron had been writing songs, incredible songs, that he wasn't really playing for anybody, and he wasn't really doing anything with it. He just was kind of on his own writing these amazing songs. As the story goes, Cliff was walking past, they didn't know each other yet. Cliff was walking past his dorm room and heard him playing these songs, and they sounded great. He just thought, man, he just kind of stood there and listened, and they're like, these are really cool songs. And he walked in and introduced himself, and he was like, hey, like, I'm Cliff. You know, he's like, oh, Aaron. And they met each other. And he was like, hey, man, like, I heard the songs you're playing. Are those your songs? Did you write those songs? And Aaron was like, yeah, he was like, wow, that's amazing. They're so good. And do you have a lot of songs? Have you written a lot of songs? Yeah, man, pretty decent amount of songs. Do you do anything with that? Like, do you play open mics, or do you do a band, or do you do anything? And Aaron was like, no, not really. I just kind of do it myself. And Cliff was like, that's cool. Like, is that a thing you want to do? Because they're great. Like, I loved what I heard. Would you want to do something with your songs? And Aaron was like, no,
Wow.
nope, not really interested. I don't.
Spoken like a true artist.
Yes. Yeah. And
I don't want to
Cliff,
have to do it.
exactly. Well, and my friend Cliff, who is just an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
an opportunist. I mean, he is just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. He's still a great friend. Most people would have been like, great to meet you. I mean, like they would have, like, reasonable people would have finished the conversation there. But Cliff pushed forward a little further, and he was like, okay, that's cool. So you got all these great songs. You don't want to do anything with it. What about, he came up with this literally on the spot. What if I started a band that you don't have to be in, and we played your songs? How about that? Would you be open to that idea? Who thinks of that? And remarkably, Aaron was like, man, that sounds okay. Like, I don't have to be in the band. He was like, no, I'll just start a band and we'll just play your songs. You just teach them to me and we'll play them. And
How does
Aaron,
this happen? This is crazy.
it is crazy. It is crazy. And it was in 1992. And Aaron was like, sure, great. So he started teaching him the songs. And the way I got put into it is Cliff immediately was like really ambitious about this, because the songs were amazing. So he was looking for people to be in this band. He didn't know any other musicians, and so he asked Aaron, through their relationship, whatever. He's like, are there other musicians, anybody you could introduce me to, to do this with me? And I was the first person that Aaron thought of, because I was kind of known at my high school for being a guitar player, and I'd been in a ton of bands. And he knew that I was in bands, and he knew that I was a decent guitar player, and that I was into kind of folk rock music like this was. And so he called me. I mean, he literally called me a few days after that, told me this entire story, and asked me if he could give Cliff my number. And Cliff came down to Houston the next weekend, and we met. He played me some of Aaron's songs, and we started the band. That was in 1992.
Wow.
Yeah.
1992. That's amazing.
The year I graduated from high school.
What?
I know. So I went right out of high school into Caedmon's. That was my
That's
it was
awesome.
it was my college path. It was like, it was
Yeah.
a 10-year plan. I skipped college and went straight into the workforce.
Straight into the workforce.
Yeah.
But so were you at this point pretty strong in your faith, or were you already starting to question? Like, what was the moment when you went, oh, maybe my faith isn't really lighting up with the evolution of who I'm becoming? When did you realize that?
Right. Well, so I think I'm wired to be kind of contrary. So like I like to kind of tug at knots and kind of loosen up knots. Like, my brain likes working on stuff.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think like probably a couple of years previous to that is when I'd had like an experience at a Young Life camp. I would call it kind of a conversion experience, where I, kind of, and I came back and I got real involved in Young Life my junior and senior year of high school. And over that summer, even when I met Cliff, I was pretty involved in Young Life and doing some leadership stuff there, and actually playing guitar at Young Life club and stuff like that. And, but so I was pretty new to it. Although I'd grown up with a version of it, I was not actively thinking about it or practicing it in any way really for those early years, not until midway through high school. And, so but I'm, you know, I'm a critical thinker, and so I definitely was processing it, and what was great about this is then I met Cliff, who as I mentioned, is just one of the smartest, but most interesting thinkers I've ever met, and then within just weeks, there were all these other people that he was kind of, because Cliff was our leader. Cliff was the visionary. He was the one who kinda made this thing happen. And he was pulling in and finding, and we were, and then I had a friend who I'd gone to high school with who was a percussionist, and Cliff had just met this drummer who was a, and so we were pulling, and before you knew it, we had like 5 or 6 people in this band that we had just started. And all of a sudden, I get to kind of go through right as I'm about college age, which is right about the time most people start to think critically about
Yeah, yeah.
their faith or their spirituality, regardless of whether they ever had before then or not. College time is when you start to detach a little bit from your parents and your home life and your upbringing, and start to kind of figure yourself out and put some flags in the ground. And so, what's great about the Caedmon's experience is I got to do that with 5 or 6 kind of best friends, and we lived together, and we spent 10 years together, and we went through
Wow.
all these experiences together. And so we were definitely
Yeah,
talking a lot, and we were
yeah.
passing books back and forth, and we were, and then as we started to write the songs and tour, and then we were going out, and we kind of met our community out on the road for 10 years, and we were having these conversations before and after shows, out by buses for hours, in diners at 2 in the morning, you know, with people. And so we talked and thought a lot about it for those years. And that would have been like kind of my 20s. And so that was really helpful. And I don't think I would have called anything I would have been doing at that time remotely what most people would think of as deconstruction, but I was
Right,
always pulling at the thread because that's how I'm wired. Like I
right.
pull at threads. To
I
find,
think most people who end up going through deconstruction are just like that. And it's not
yeah,
that you're trying to make a big deal about things, but like just answer the question.
I
Like
I
I'm just,
agree
just
agree.
very curious and I'm
Yeah, most
very
people I
I need to
know,
understand why.
yeah,
And if you
exactly.
can't explain that, then I'm gonna look and figure out why.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
and especially when it comes to something where the stakes are so high,
yeah,
like spiritual beliefs, the stakes are high because it informs how you live your life. It informs, it's arguably the biggest, widest grid through which you're looking at the world to help you make sense,
mhm,
and informing the way you behave and the decisions you make and your values, everything's tied into it. And what's crazy is really all it is just our opinions about invisible reality. It's just
mhm,
our opinions.
yeah,
Um, and the way that and maybe we'll get to this eventually, but, you know, the way I tend to think about stuff like this, and probably always did, but it didn't get clear to me, until maybe years later, and maybe we'll get there, is like when it comes to things you cannot see, like God, things you cannot know, like the future, I think uncertainty is a great way to go. I think uncertainty is maybe your only real option, because you're not ever going to see God. You're not ever going to know the future. Now, uncertainty is not the enemy of faith; it's the prerequisite. So I don't
mhm,
think that's a problem. But I have always had, and now permanently have, an uncertainty built into my thinking when it comes to spirituality, when I'm thinking about, when I'm thinking about my opinions about invisible reality, unknowable things, invisible things. I lead with my uncertainty now, and it keeps me intellectually honest.
yeah.
I would hope to be uncertain about these things till the day I find out. Because if you get certain about it, it actually makes the faith less necessary, if necessary at all.
It's not faith
It's
when
not,
you're certain
no, you're
that
certain. What if
you're like, "This is it. This is it. There's no other truth. This is the truth." And once you start to plant your flag in that, then it's very difficult for you to I mean, you get defensive when
of
people
course you
believe
do,
something
yeah,
different.
because
You
you go
feel
from,
offended
that's
a
right.
lot,
You
you
go
know?
from, like, exploratory critical thinking, let's learn everything we can, and to, like, plant your flag, defend the castle,
Mhm.
and it is a defensive, posture at that point, and it makes it very difficult, especially when your eternity, your eternal salvation is tied up in the stakes of it. It's really hard once you get certainty about it. It's hard to come into any new information. It's hard to learn or evolve or grow or listen to your friends' experiences and let that inform in some way what you're experiencing. And it gets really tricky. And it's real mischief.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You make waves when you do that. But I also, I don't know, I've always liked waves.
Yeah.
So I feel like, when my deconstruction began, it doesn't sound like you had a lot of fear, baked into your theology the way I did, but, like, I was a
Mm,
very fundamental.
yes.
I was an independent Baptist for a while, then we
Oh,
were Southern
yes.
Baptist, my dad was a deacon, it was pretty intense, and so, like, fire and brimstone hell, all of that was. So not only was I questioning something and feeling uncertain about something that I was supposed to feel certain about, but if I was wrong, I was gonna burn for all of eternity.
Yeah.
So,
There were
it was like a
consequences
double
both
whammy,
both
like,
immediately and forever.
forever with
Yeah.
no chance of reprieve.
Was rooted in a Southern Baptist church in Houston. Skip's
Oh, I
dad
didn't know.
was the pastor, and still actually is the pastor of a giant, mega church in Houston,
Mm,
and
yeah.
the Southern Baptist church. So he was a PK, and we all were getting that. And although, as you said, I did not go through that, growing up.
Mm. It didn't seem like the way you were talking about it, it seemed more just like a cultural,
Yeah, there was
like,
not.
accepting. Okay.
That's yeah, yeah. There was not a fundamentalism to it. There was not a rigid. There was not,
That's nice.
none of that was part of my experience growing up. I didn't have that. But most of my then new friends in Caedmon's in the
Mm,
early '90s when we were starting all that, most of them had grown up with that. Most of them had grown up Southern Baptist, or otherwise, and especially with our kind of leader Cliff being a PK, he did bring a lot of that into our little community and into our little family. And so during all those years, like whatever he was going through processing
mm.
that fundamentalism as a PK, we were going through with him. And so, when it came time for us to like figure out what to do about alcohol, we all did that together. But boy, was there ever with some of my bandmates because they grew up with a totally different experience. So we really had to learn a lot together. We went through all that. So it's interesting, we definitely did talk about everything.
Mhm.
We spent all of our time together on the road, so we certainly, had plenty of time to discuss that kind of thing, and we did, but it's like, mostly I was processing that in my songwriting. I was writing about half. So Aaron was our songwriter, and he was writing all the songs when we started the band. I started writing in the first year or 2, and then after that, for all the remainder of the years, I was writing about half the material. So I was writing half, and Aaron was writing half. And I was mostly processing that stuff in the songs I was writing, and that's where I was mostly expressing it. We certainly were having the conversations. I'll tell you who I talked a lot more with about it were the people who were hanging out at the shows. And so, like, after shows, because there was a decent amount of theology really in a lot of the Caedmon's lyrics, both Aaron's and mine. We were processing a lot and working a lot of that out in those lyrics. The people who were resonating with our music and wanted to hang out after the show and talk mostly were people who wanted to talk about or debate some of that stuff with us. And so that's where so much of it was happening. But on the whole, like me and my bandmates, like we really kind of stayed pretty neck and neck with each other in terms of like relatively how we were processing our faith and our experience of spirituality. And we were doing that, like we were so close, and the experience we were having was so kind of concentrated that we stayed very parallel with each other for most of those years. It wasn't really until right around the 10-year mark, right where I was leaving the band, is when I started shifting pretty dramatically. And even that shift, that dramatic shift was actually part of why I wound up leaving the band and starting a solo career. Because what started to happen was I was writing songs that to me felt like a natural progression of just processing all this and trying to kind of figure it out and deal with it. And especially after our band had spent 10 years in kind of where the sausage was made, like in the Christian music business and on hanging out with people in Christian radio and people in Christian retail and Christian music festivals and conferences, and and back rooms and hallways of churches where we were doing concerts, and then Christian universities. And boy, oh boy, I had so much in my mind about all this after increasingly over this time. And so I started to eventually write songs about this. And it was kind of like, why is no one talking about any of this? Why are we not talking about the way the church behaves that feels completely out of harmony with the things that Jesus seemed to be so concerned about? Why are our churches behaving so backwards, and our Christian institutions and universities acting so backwards, and the messages that I'm hearing advertised in retail and radio, why is so much of it so fearful and so kind of just classic consumerism and classic commodifying of, kind of worship product? So as I was writing these songs, this fascinating thing started to happen. I would show the songs to my bandmates, and they would hear them, and they were like, yeah, like we hear you, and we agree, and that's a good song, but like that, you can't play that song like
Mm.
like
On Christian radio. Yeah.
well, even at like our concerts, because at
Ooh.
this point, 10 years in,
Mhm.
we'd built a lot. We had a lot of friends whose livings were tied up in this thing with us, and we weren't like Jars of Clay or Third Day, but we were selling, millions of total albums.
Yeah. You were big.
It was a business, and we were rightfully protective of that, and I think the
Mhm.
band was. And so, I remember there was a song called Wedding Dress, and it was the first song that I showed them where everybody was like, "Wow, we like that song, but we're not ever going to play that." Like, you
Mhm.
can't play that on stage at one of our concerts. And so I was like, that was the point where I was like, okay, well, like, I'm showing the songs I'm writing, which I think are Caedmon's call songs. That's the only kind of songs I've ever written, because this has been my only experience. My other friends, and I kind of feel strongly like I need to follow the energy of these new songs. But if they're not Caedmon songs, I don't know what to write for our band. So as I was showing these songs to my friends, I was thinking, like, I think I need to follow the energy of these new songs.
Yeah.
What's my role in this anymore if these aren't Caedmon's call songs? And so it was our decision, but it was around the 10-year mark, and I was kind of thinking about, what our band was doing, and what I was feeling with the energy of these new songs. And I just followed them, the songs. And the band was okay with it. I mean, it was hard. It's really hard. And so it was tough, but I left and started my solo career. And so that was like right at the beginning of the 2000s, right around the 10-year mark for Caedmon's. And all these songs I thought were Caedmon's call songs wound up being all the songs on my first album, which wound up being She Must and Shall Go Free. That came out in like 2002.
How
So
was that
I was
received?
reluctant to do it, even.
Yeah. How was that received in CCM? What was it?
Well, so Caedmon's had like songs on the radio, and Caedmon's did pretty well in that regard. But those were not typically my songs. I only had one song on the radio ever as a single. Those were mostly Aaron's songs.
Mhm.
He really wrote much better songs for radio. He's just a way better songwriter and pop songwriter. And then we had some like Rich Mullins songs that we covered, and those did well. But I didn't have a lot of high expectation that I was going to do well in on the radio. But I did sign my first record deal with what's called a Christian record label. I give air quotes to things like this because a quote that I really like, that I've been saying for many years, is that the term Christian, when applied to anything other than a human being, is a marketing term,
Yes.
which is to say there is no such thing as Christian music, Christian radio stations, Christian retail, Christian record labels, Christian education, Christian breath mints. There is no such thing. The term Christian cannot mean, when applied to things other than people, what it means when you say it about a person. Because Christian people, allegedly, are the redeemed, saved ones, the ones who are going to heaven. If this music is the only music that's ever going to be in heaven, then eternity is going to feel like a long time, because not all of it's amazing.
I
And
100% agree.
yeah,
100%.
so the point being, it's a marketing term. That's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Marketing
Right, yeah.
terms are helpful for people to find their way in culture to things they want to consume. That's
Yes.
what marketing terms are good for. The word Christian, if you are a Christian person, you're looking for Christian music, I get that. It does not mean that the music you're listening to is right, true, good, beautiful, redeemed. It cannot mean that. So the songs on Christian radio are not better than, or more moral than, or more even Christian than the songs on what's called secular radio. So there's no such thing
Right.
as all that. The point being, I have to say that disclaimer if I'm going to call something a Christian record label, because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as Christian and secular money. I'll tell you that. They
Oh,
all
yeah. It's
labels
all green.
all green. And so, but that is where I started, and the label understood. And so my first record was weird because I was coming out of this band that was kind of at the height of its success around that time. And so I had this great wind at my back. But She Mustn't Shall Go Free was a really peculiar debut album. It was a really weirdo first record because it didn't get carried in a lot of Christian retail. It got censored and out of a lot of retail. They wouldn't carry it because of songs like Wedding Dress, because of the there was kind of provocative language on it. I mean, it's Ezekiel 16. I said the word whore in a song a couple times. I mean, it's in the Bible. So unless they're going to put the Bibles behind the counter
Right.
away from the kiddos, then that they got a bigger problem than me on their hands. But the point is, it was a pretty controversial thing right out of the gate for me. And that was good because the label, needed to know that's what it was going to be. And it always was. And it always was. Cause again, that's how I think. I'm coming after subject matter that, especially in Christian circles at that time, is typically simplified, oversimplified, reduced. We got to get back into the nuance because that's where all the good conversation and the truth of it all is.
And I think that's what I love about your music, Derek, is yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reflection of like your personal evolution. You can see it in all your songs. And that's awesome. And it definitely has shifted your song, all of that. It's almost like a journal that you're letting us all in on. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
definitely
And it,
documenting as I go. Yeah.
yeah, I think the most beautiful thing though about your music is that it really sparks conversation. Like
Yeah.
whether or not people like the conversation the way that you see it, like
Right.
at least tell you like let's talk about it.
Yes.
Let's bring this out because people are thinking this.
Yes.
They're
And
just
that has
afraid to
always
say
been
it.
that's right. I think so. And that's always been my instinct has always been like, I don't need, oh my God, the last thing I want is for people to think like me. Cause I don't even agree with me most of the time. Like I am processing this in real time. Like I'm uncertain. What did I just finish saying? Like I'm not certain. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still evolving. I'm still trying to figure it out. So I am not trying to get people to have the same answers to questions that I have. I'm just trying to ask the questions. I just like to ask questions and get your brain working on that knot. That's what I feel like if I've got something to contribute, I think that's my instinct in what I write. And that's kind of been the hallmark of my songwriting, I think, over the years.
No, I definitely sense that. And I also feel like what people need to understand is that when you are in an evangelical space, and it sounds like you never really like settled in
That's true.
to that space, you know
Yeah,
what I
you're
mean?
right. You're right.
But when we're in those spaces, Derek, we are taught to evangelize. We
Yes.
are taught to defend. We
Right.
go through classes that teach us how to
Yes.
defend what our faith is and defend God and
Mm.
defend Jesus and our opinions are right and here's why and then here's the
Yes.
scriptures and it's all sacred. And
Yes.
so like when a lot of us go to deconstruct or start asking questions, people are like, and I've had this even said to me by people I really care about, like, are you trying to recruit people to your new religion? And I'm like,
Right.
no, as a matter of fact, what I'm trying to do is help people see that I am not a religious person now. Like
Right.
I've kind of turned away from the dogma and I've embraced uncertainty. And I
Yes.
want to hear from people on every, like, oh my gosh, tell me your story. It
Yes.
used to scare me to hear people's
Yes.
stories, Derek. I was
Same.
terrified. You
Right.
probably scared me at one point. I was like, I don't know about this guy,
Nah, not doing
but
it. Yeah.
but you know what? You were consistent. You stuck with it. And honestly, your heart shines through so much. I don't know how somebody could not see you and go, this guy really cares about human beings. And that's
No,
beautiful.
well, I that means a lot. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
saying so.
No, it's true. So what moved you to be so outspoken for the LGBTQ plus community? Why is this such a and I love that
Yes.
you do this, by the way. I think it's amazing.
Thank
I know it's difficult in some spaces,
Yeah,
and misunderstood often, but
sure.
tell me what brought that about?
Well, so it's mostly I mean, there are so many things I could say.
Yeah.
Um, Mostly, it has been through my personal relationships and my family.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of loved ones, a lot of family, close family, who are in the queer community. I have a ton of very, very close friends who are queer and trans, and I have for a lot of years. And it's like I used to tell my evangelical friends that it's fine for you to say your opinions about the morality of all this stuff. If that's a thing you feel like you need to talk about, I don't think there's anything interesting about talking about morality. That just doesn't sound fun to me. But I don't get the point. I don't get the point
Yeah.
because we all get to make decisions about this sort of thing. And we're all governed by laws, so it's there's guardrails in place. We can all have opinions about everything else. But it's like, if you don't have gay friends, uh, who are going to hold you accountable to the way that you are expressing those opinions, maybe don't talk about it
Mhm.
in the hypothetical,
Yeah.
because you don't realize how insensitive and probably really hurtful you're being. You don't know. You just don't know. You
You
need
don't.
you need friends in your life who can tell you that you're doing that. Like, you need guidance and you need help.
100%.
And anyway, so for me, the way I found my way into it at all, I mean, even as far back as like 2010 or maybe before, like on a record I put out called Stockholm Syndrome, I got in trouble on that record for putting a song on it that actually got censored off the record by the label. That was the first time that had ever happened. That was basically about, my frustration with the church's treatment of the gay community.
Mhm.
Even back that far, this has been concerning to me, and it's a thing I've been aware of, and I've had queer and friends and trans friends who I talk to about this, and I see the way it affects them, and so that's been important to me for a long time. It's not been up until the last maybe 10 years, or less, that it's become a big part of my work,
Mm.
where a consistent part of my work, where because I just feel so strongly, because I'm in relationship with so many folks who are getting hit from every side, not only the church, but now the government and everybody, and their safety, their lives are at risk literally every day. Their literal lives are at risk. If you look at I mean, trigger warning for folks about things like self-harm and suicide, but like, the statistics about these things, especially with queer youth, are off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
It is an unbearable world. You are so squeezed. Queer youth are so squeezed in 2025 America, and the danger that this community is in, it got for me so overwhelming. It's like when you look at the world and you see emergencies and you see fires and you see like things that need you to move and rush in and help, but you don't know where to move. There's always kind of that tallest fire that you have to deal with first, the one you can't see past to even start dealing with anything else. Because for you, for whatever reason, it's the most personal. It's closest in proximity. And for me, that has been for many years. The being an ally to the queer community, and so I have worked really hard at it, and I have tried to be consistent about it, and I've tried to, and it has just increased over the years,
Yeah.
and mostly due to my friends, my best friends, most of my best friends, and my loved ones, my family, are have been my motivation, and that is what has guided me and focused me, and so that's where, and it's a huge part of my work now. I mean, right into the latest record, which is specifically, literally soundtrack to empower and encourage queer folks and especially
Yeah.
queer youth. Yeah,
Huh. So beautiful. Wow. And it is. It's an album. I think it's really going to soothe a lot of very, very hurting hearts.
yeah, I
Just
hope
to
so.
even hear somebody's like taking that risk. I mean, it's a risk for you to go out there and do that. And you know that. And you're like, I don't even care. I just want them to feel love. Like
Yes,
it,
of course.
there's, and the sad part for me, Derek, and like, it took me so long to get past this particular issue.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's why I'm so excited to have you on because
Yeah,
I'm on the other side of it now, but my goodness, did it take me a while.
yeah,
And because I was afraid, like I'd been
of
told
course.
this is what this verse means and this is what this means. And and if I'm honest, I really felt like I was being loving by telling people you're
Of course.
choosing a lifestyle over God. I remember telling
Yeah, of
people that. And
course.
but I tell you, the turning point for me was, and it was easy to be judgmental when I didn't love somebody who was gay, or at least I didn't know that I was
Yeah,
loving somebody that was gay.
of
Then they would
course.
never tell me because I was not safe.
Right.
But when I finally did develop a relationship with somebody who was gay, which was when I was on Survivor in 2007, one of the guys on my tribe was gay. He was a gay Mormon flight attendant, and I was a Christian radio host. And they put us on the same tribe, I think, to see us like fight. But instead of that, we listened and we loved each other. Like he calls me mama to this day. And so, but when I came back from Survivor and I kept asking questions like, why do we see it this way? The answers were not what I had hoped and what I thought they would be. And so then I started doing, a deep dive into the meaning of the words and all of the things. And so, but like it took me still a really long time, Derek, because it's
Right.
so funny. The kind of hate that they get, I knew would come at me. And I
Right.
didn't want that.
Of course.
I
Of
wanted to
course.
protect myself. And then I realized finally one day, like it just was this epiphany. Like you keep protecting yourself, you're not going to be able to protect them.
Oh, no, exactly. And there's this great quote from a friend here in Nashville, Stan Mitchell, who is he's an ex-pastor. He's a tremendous ally. And what he says that I really love, and it speaks directly to what you're saying, is if you consider yourself somebody's ally and you're not being hit by the stones thrown at them, then you are
Mhm.
not standing close enough.
Woo!
And that has been a real kind of mission statement for
Mhm.
me in these more recent years.
Wow,
And
that's
okay, but
powerful.
it is. And Stan is tremendous. I mean, for anybody who wants to find him on social media, on Facebook, I mean, Stan Mitchell is absolutely a gem and and such a tremendous resource for folks. I have to though pause and say, did I know? Was I supposed to know? So you were on Survivor?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
no,
don't like lead with it, but
no,
yeah, I was.
it's fine, but I'm gonna need a quick timeout here because my wife and I are
No, are
the
you a fan?
my
Oh
wife
my
and I
gosh.
are the biggest Survivor fanatic. I'm so disappointed that I didn't just know this from looking at you.
Oh
I'm
no,
just
you wouldn't have.
no, I'm just
No,
saying
it
I'm the biggest Survivor fan. My wife and I are the biggest Survivor nerds that you've
okay.
maybe ever. And I was even on Spotify's official Survivor podcast, which Tyson Apostle, who is a longtime
Excellent.
player,
Love him.
so he hosts it,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I got to be a guest on that podcast, and I've gotten to talk to Tyson a few times
Who
about
knew?
Survivor.
I love it.
I'm such a crazy fan, and now
Well,
I'm
do
losing
you
my
remember
mind.
Survivor China?
We've watched almost every single season, but
Okay, so
we haven't
Survivor
watched
China.
them all. Okay.
Yeah.
I
It
don't know
was
that I've
the
watched Survivor China.
well, it was we had to go to this like Chinese like temple
Wait a
and they
second.
had us
Oh my god.
bowing.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second.
I'm the one that walked out.
Wait
Sister,
a second.
yeah.
Like, because wait, so
Hmm.
because everybody went there, but
Yeah.
then because then it was
Jeff was
like,
like,
and then
yeah.
you didn't want to go. You didn't go in.
I went in, but I didn't bow. I walked out and I looked at a producer and I was like, I can't do this. And he was like,
I am
and then
losing
yeah.
my mind. I'm losing my mind right now. If my
Yeah. And
wife
so I
was
have
here,
deconstructed.
I
So
know we're trying to I'm gonna try to get through the rest of this interview, but if my wife was here, and she's not, and
well,
if she heard
we can do like a FaceTime.
if she heard what I was saying right now, and she understood what was happening, she
Yeah.
would be up here shoving me out of the way to talk to you right now. This is crazy. Was I supposed to know this?
No, I'm sorry. I don't you know
Oh
what? It's
my
been
god.
so long, Derek. It has been
No, we
I mean, it's
absolutely watched your season.
yeah, and
That
it was
was kind of a pivotal moment. I mean,
that
I'm
was my
proud of that.
pivotal moment, and it was very it's funny because I was so celebrated for standing up for Jesus
Sure.
by the
Oh,
Christian
no,
community,
I
and now
understand.
that I'm standing up for Jesus by leaving, I am not being celebrated.
Yeah, yeah.
So funny. I'm like, "Oh,
Wow.
well, aren't we
Man, I'm
fickle?"
so
No.
sorry that you got distracted,
No,
but
no, you're fine, you're
you were
fine. My
saying
my listeners are gonna get a kick out of this.
oh, you were as you were talking about it, you said it so casually in the conversation there, and I was like that Zach Galifianakis meme with all of the computations going above my head, and I was like, "What? Wait."
Well, I'm
Like, it
sorry.
was like
I guess
$50.
I should
I was
lead with
trying to
that if, just in case
it was
somebody is a fan,
computing
but
for me, but not registering, and
yeah, but
so
that's when it really Todd is the guy who won the season.
yes, right.
He is the one he still calls me mama, he lives 20 miles away.
Yeah.
We still I mean, like, he is one of the reasons that I am where I am now, why
Wow,
I'm
well,
free.
that's huge. Well, you
Yeah,
know what? And that goes right back to what the way I was
yeah,
answering your question, like, how did I get here?
mhm,
It was by way of all of my personal relationships, my
yeah.
family, my dear loved ones, my best friends, my community. That's how. That's how. Yeah.
That's beautiful, and I think it's really, really and I see it a lot because I live in Utah, and
Mm,
I actually I do a group here locally called Thrive Beyond Religion. They have, like,
nice.
there a lot of ex-Mormons go to these groups where they find community after leaving, and so I lead one here, and I'm the only one who's not an ex-Mormon, but, they're all just so lovely, but I would say the majority of them left because they had a child
Wow.
who said, "I'm gay," and they
Oh,
said,
yeah.
"I'm on your team. I'm not gonna deny you."
Yeah.
And then they started doing the research, and it was kind of my story. I mean, he's not my child, like, by birth, but
Yeah.
he's my survivor kid,
Yes.
and my God, I love him, and I'm always gonna love him, and I'm always gonna stand up for him, but there were so many
Mm,
things I said to him that were so unloving in the name of love, you know?
sure.
Um,
Well, you were doing the best you could with the information that you had,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I was doing it because I loved him,
and that's
and
all
that's
you
the
ever
thing that is so easy to forget when you're going through this,
right.
is, like, they really think they're being loving. They
Right.
really do. I know because I was one of them,
Yes.
um, and I don't even know what broke it open for me, helped me to see, but
Well, it
so
sounds like a lot of those experiences probably did.
yeah, I
Mm.
mean, I think we all do when we go through this project or
Yeah.
process.
Yes.
So if you could say, this is, I think, I really want you to be able to say whatever you want here.
Yeah.
If you could say one thing to the evangelical audience that feels a little betrayed by you,
Hmm.
because we know they do. They feel betrayed by me too, Derek. I get it.
Yes, I'm
But
I'm
like,
sure
what
they
would
do.
you want to say to them? What do you feel like? What would be the first thing you would say to somebody who's like, man, buddy, you have just lost it. You're gone.
Hmm.
I'm worried for you.
Hmm. Um, I I I don't know. I think I would probably try and relate to them by saying, like, "I am doing now what I have always done. I am looking at the world, I'm trying to describe it and be honest and vulnerable about the way that I do that
Mhm.
and bring my full identity and self to that and my intellect and everything I've got, my experiences." In seasons past, that has yielded songs like, uh, Thankful or Wedding Dress or whatever it is. And but the songs I'm writing today, my ethic is the same, and I feel as though I have now I don't at this point kind of identify as an evangelical
Mhm.
Christian believer or anything like that.
Right.
But I'm probably more interested in Jesus as
Yeah.
an historical person, who did live in the 1st century. I am even more interested probably and feel more liberated to really follow him
Mhm.
in the way that he in because what you have in Jesus, in my opinion, that's another thing I learned, and when I stopped being identifying as evangelical, I learned to
In
say,
my
in
opinion.
my opinion before I say a thing, because
Yeah.
back before I would just state an opinion as fact.
Fact. Yeah.
That's and if you're arguing with me, then you're arguing with the Bible because
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Same.
here's the Bible. I'll just leave you to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's very passive aggressive, very very manipulative. But anyway, in my opinion, Jesus was a disruptive. He was anti-empire.
Mhm.
He spent his life and was willing to have his reputation ruined for marginalized people
Yeah.
in his community. That is who he got in all of his trouble for radically loving and living with marginalized people
Mhm.
and centering marginalized people and loving and caring for and living his life with marginalized people. It ruined his reputation. And we have to be people if we care. If Jesus matters to us, and maybe he doesn't, and that's okay. And it doesn't. This doesn't have to be your motivation. But if you are a person, since you're asking, and I'm speaking to my
Mhm.
evangelical friends who feel betrayed by me, uh, you have to be willing to follow Jesus all the way to where your reputation is also ruined as a result of how radically you are loving people who our culture finds complicated.
Mhm.
If you're not willing to have your reputation utterly ruined as a result of loving and living with marginalized people, then you're not really taking Jesus seriously. You're not really listening to what he's saying. Or you're adding so much to it that you're deciding that the net result of all of it is that, yeah, I know that, the poor and women, and orphans and widows and marginalized people and lepers and all these kind of, yeah, I hear all that. But I think I need to love them so much that I'm willing to publicly hate them and excommunicate them. Like, in other words, I need to show them how I'll never leave them by abandoning them.
Mhm.
That'll teach them. Like, none of that makes any sense. It only makes sense when we try to hold all this stuff together and put writings that came sometimes, many times, dozens, if not hundreds of years after Jesus was even on the earth. And you pack all this together and call all of it perfect and inerrant
Sacred.
and
Yeah.
sacred. And it's gonna make it really hard for you just to hear what Jesus is saying and what was he doing and who was he doing it with, and who did he reserve his most harsh judgmental language for. Let me give you a hint. It wasn't the marginalized.
It wasn't the homosexual community. It
It
wasn't
it was
trans people.
it wasn't. It was arrogant church
Mm-mm.
leadership,
Mhm.
is who Jesus was after, if you wanna look at who he was judging and pursuing. And it was a result of them pursuing him because he was spending his life with marginalized people,
Mhm.
and people who they found complex to
Yeah.
love, and he didn't. It just does not need to be that complicated. You just have to be willing to leave even your great moral reputation behind. You have to be willing to even leave your great standing in your church and your community behind in
Mhm.
order to follow Jesus to the margins.
Yeah.
And it and that is gonna put you right out of your church. It's gonna put
Yeah.
you right on the prayer list. People are gonna be praying and fasting because you're in the same trouble Jesus was in. That's exactly where you need to be. I feel like I followed Jesus right into a wig and a dress, when I
Yeah.
made the video for Boys Will Be Girls, where Flamey Grant, my great friend, put me in drag for that video.
Oh, I remember that. I was like,
You
"Look
know
at him go.
Yeah.
Love this guy."
But it's true. Like, I feel like every one of these, although I might not be actively following Jesus, at least not as savior at this point, because I don't believe I have anything that I need saving from
Saving mhm.
existentially. Um, I feel like this is more in line with following the person Jesus is and was and what he taught than I ever have and maybe ever did during my evangelical years. So I don't know.
Wow.
That'd be a long answer. I doubt they would stay for that long, but
No, they don't listen to my podcast, Derek. Don't listen.
we'll keep
If they
trying.
do, it's just when they're, like, having, "We really need to pray for her
Yeah,
now
we'll keep
because
trying.
listen to this episode."
Yeah, they
That's
need
the only time.
ammo. They need
It's
ammo.
okay. I've it's so funny, like, I used to get really upset about it, and now it's just like, "Eh, it's
Yeah.
okay." I would have been the same way, Derek. I
Yeah.
would
No,
have
no,
I
and I
was
was, I was, yeah.
yeah,
I still
100%.
care, but I care more about the people who
Exactly.
are in
The
my
people
life who need
who
me,
need love, who
and
need support, encouragement, you know,
who need
acceptance.
allies, and who need
Yeah.
those of us with privilege to surrender that and spend that currency and speak up for them, and that's what I'm hoping to try and do.
Yeah. I wish every month could be Pride Month.
Oh my god. Well, it can, can't it?
You can. I mean, but I'm
It's
just saying,
not.
like,
Yeah,
as we enter into Pride Month,
right.
like what would you wanna say? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the microphone, and we're gonna pretend like the whole world is listening, even though we know my podcast isn't that big of a deal. But, like, what would you say as we go into especially okay, wait, let's talk to someone specific, Derek. Let's talk to the person who is just starting to be an ally, but they haven't quite they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna fly the flag, though.
Right,
I don't know if I want people to know."
right.
What would you say to them?
That you have to be brave. You
Mm,
have to be brave. You have to summon your courage, and you have to surrender it and spend it on behalf of people who don't have the choice but to summon courage every day to go and
right.
present themselves to the world authentically, to literally fight for integrity, to be integrated, to be the same on the inside as they are on the outside. For those people, they don't have the choice but to be courageous every day that they go outside, every day that they go to school, every day that they present themselves to the world. in the full expression of their identity and who they are. They don't have the choice. You do have the choice. So choose bravery. There's a song on Survival Songs, and it's called Nail Polish, and it's the second song on the record, and it's a song about why I, as a straight cisgender man, tend to keep my nails painted. The main reason is because, well, first of all, obviously it's solidarity and it challenges
Yeah.
binary convention and things like that, which I love.
Mhm.
Um, but mainly it's because it's an early warning system. Because when I'm out in public with my queer family and friends, and we're together in public, which is not a safe place. It's not a safe place. It takes great
That's so
courage.
hard to imagine. That's
Yeah,
so hard to imagine living like that.
it is. It is. And so when I'm out with my friends, it something as little as nail polish on a guy like me tends to draw all of those side eyes and all of that. And it helps me to identify potentially unsafe, homophobic, transphobic people in any room. And so for me, those people identify themselves. They can't help but out themselves to me, but because of something as stupid as nail polish, they can't help but show themselves to me. And I know who to watch out for to keep my people safe when I'm out in public with my family and my friends. And so, the bridge of that song says, "Be brave, pick a shade." And of nail polish, and let's get to this work. And so that's what it is. Like, summon your bravery. You have the choice to do it. These folks, the folks in the margins, the folks arguably who Jesus would have his reputation ruined over loving and living with, need you, and don't have the choices you have. They have to summon
Mhm.
this bravery every day just to step outside as their authentic selves. So we have to do it.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Now you have a tour coming up. Let's talk about this.
Yes.
How
So it's
excited
just
are you about this? Is this
I'm
the one where you're going to people's houses and
Yes. So that's actually the only way I tour anymore. I've done a lot of house shows over the years, over many years, 25 years of solo records. I've done a lot of touring in houses, playing house shows. And house shows are interesting. They're not always in people's houses, but they most often are. I'll be in somebody's bonus room, living room, basement. Anywhere we can squeeze 30 to 50 folks squeezed in, sitting on the floor, or however we do it. I don't use a PA. I don't use lights. There's nothing between me and the
no
audience.
fog machines, Derek?
No, but I don't bring the fog machine and the hazer into the suburban living rooms. But anyways, some house shows, and it's interesting to me, like some house shows, folks who reach out to want to host, and anybody can host these house shows. On my website, you can do that. You can put in your information to do that. But on this tour, it's actually a lot of churches put in to host these, and so probably very progressive churches, and but they are hosting the shows. Some are in churches, some are houses, some are yoga studios, art studios. There are all kinds of spaces, but all of them are intimate. And there's no PA, there's no lights. It's a very intimate kind of situation. I'll be playing the whole album every night plus requests. I play the A side, then I play some requests, then I play the B side of Survival Songs. And it starts up. Yeah, I'm going to Florida tomorrow. I don't know when. As of today, I'll be leaving tomorrow, but this will probably be in the future of that. But all the way to the end of the year, I'll be on
Wow.
the road playing shows on the Survival Songs house show tour, and probably into 2026. We're going to add some more shows, but it's already a lot of shows.
So you have these listed on your website so we can check
I
that
do,
out?
yeah. DerekWebb.com, DerekWebb. And that's me on socials too. I'm at Derek Webb everywhere. But yeah, I would love for folks to find the record, to listen to it, to think about folks it may be in their life who it might help to hear these songs, and tag them, text them, message them, send it to them. And then please come out and see a show. Drag your friends. We actually just announced a thing today that's really cool, but this will be true for the whole tour. We had a thing as we've been selling tickets to all the shows, where folks can, if they want, when they're buying their ticket, they can sponsor an LGBTQ plus youth teenager to come to the show. So they get a free. So we are able to provide free tickets for queer teens to come to the show if they want to, because that's really who I made the record for. And we've had so many people do this already as they're buying tickets to the various shows, that we today announced that we are just making all tickets for LGBTQ plus teens. Anybody 18 or under can come to any one of the shows for free. All the tickets
Wow.
for queer teens are all free. You still have to come. You still need to come and RSVP and get your ticket, but it's
Mhm.
free. It's free.
That's
Um,
amazing.
And so
What
you
a
wanna
that's
make it.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah. So we're trying to get the word out, to PFLAG and GLAD and all the local chapters of all the organizations that we love and support here in Nashville. We want to get the word out. And if there's anybody who just wants to come, just hear some affirmation for an hour or so, we'd love for them to do that. So yeah, all that's on the website and that sort of thing.
Well,
So
I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so people
yeah,
can just
cool. Thank
click a button and you're
Yeah,
there. So,
amazing.
okay, as we close,
Yeah.
Mr. Webb, what gives you hope?
Um, it's a great question. And you have to look pretty hard for it in 2025,
Mhm.
but you have to and it's and you have to do that intentionally. Like you have to have the conduits open and kind of the antennas up to see and feel and find the hope. But I do find it in my friends. I find it in my kids and my kids' friends. My teenagers, I find it, in my immediate relationships, my wife, my community here in Nashville, and watching people against all odds stand up against crashing waves of oppression and evil and violence, and yet they stand there. Um, and I do see it. I see it online. I see it I see it in people. My hope is in people. Seeing it's what Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers always said, like in any emergency and tragedy and you need to look hard, but there will be the helpers. They will be there, and you need to look for them, and they'll be there. And I feel like I'm seeing the helpers. I'm seeing those people, both in political places and in broader cultural places, and on the internet and in my community. I am seeing them, and I'm so grateful. And every time I see, I just think how hard it must be to continue to show up and do this work in the face of so much oppression and so much resistance. And so to see people continue to do it, it absolutely just fills me with hope.
Derek, we're about to close, but okay, I heard something on your album today that had me in tears.
Hmm.
And it's, I think, something that a lot of people, including my listeners, would really benefit from hearing. You want to talk about that?
Yes, yes. And so there's a song midway through the album that's a part one, and it's called "Sola Trans Love" Part One, and and that is a song, words of meditation. That's kind of midway through the album, and it's really kind of musings about the inner divine and about to kind of help untangle some of that religious trauma. If people, Survival Songs is not an album about religious trauma, but for folks who come to the album who might have that, there's a moment for them there. At the end of the record, there's a part two to that song, and it's called Sola Trans Love, Part Two, Words of Affirmation. And where it came from was when I first started writing the songs for this record at the beginning of the year, I was reaching out because as I've said, like I am not, nor could I possibly be a leader in this movement or this moment. I am a follower. I follow my friends who are in the queer community. I follow them into this fight and into this work. And I take their guidance and I let them tell me like what as an ally can I be doing that helps more than it hurts. Because sometimes people lead with their enthusiasm and not with their preparation. And that is me so much of the time. And so one of the first things I did when I was working on writing the songs is I reached out to a lot of my friends, especially artist friends and mostly all queer friends. And I asked them, what would you say to yourself if you had a moment you could grab your younger teenage or adolescent self by the shoulders and say something to yourself quickly to help you survive and get through a moment like this that we're in right now? What would that be? What could that be that that would help and that would be meaningful to you and could have helped at that time? And I asked my friends, could you think about that and just text me back and just give me some thoughts and give me some language? I got some incredible, beautiful messages back. So much of that language wound up informing and being weaved all into the lyrics, all over the record. That's why I was asking. Um, but some of it was so touching and some of my friends so generous that I went back to them just after and I said, "Hey, your message was beautiful. It was so helpful. Is there any chance I could get you to do one more thing? Could you grab your phone, hit record on your voice notes and just say it? Say it with your voice. Say it out of your body to your younger self. What is that message? What is that brief message that you think might help keep you alive in 2025?" What is it? Would you say it? And at the time, I was like, I don't even know if I would do anything with it. Would you be okay if I used it and put it on the record in some way? I don't even know what I'll do, but it feels like it's important. Um, and some of my friends did this, and they sent these things back to me with their voices, and it was so beautiful to me, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought that I was kind of done. I knew where the record would end. I had this song that felt like an anthemic ending for the album. But then I thought, if it's a 41-minute record, if I can manage to get some sweet queer kid somewhere to listen to these songs and spend this 40 minutes with me, what do I want to leave them with? And I decided I don't want to leave them with clever poetry. I don't want to leave them what they need. The last thing I want them to hear is just an onslaught of affirmation, that they are enough, that they are beautiful, that they have always existed and do exist, that they are brave, that they are loved. And these were the messages that my friends had sent me. And so I made a adapted kind of instrumental version of this earlier song on the album. And I just pulled the piano out of that just to have kind of a soft moment. And just for a minute and a half or so, just stitch together all these voices. And there's a dozen or more of my friends on this track. People like Flamey Grant is on there, and Jennifer Knapp, and Tiffany from Plum, who's a mutual friend, and many other great friends. And their voices just come at you from every direction,
Mhm.
affirming you. And it ends with just a cacophony of voices saying that you are loved. And if you're not hearing that, here's a minute and a half. You can skip straight to it and you can listen to it. I have had friends tell me that they've set it as the wake up song for their children every morning, which obviously is just, I can't, think about that because I'll just be a little puddle. But anyway, that's how the album ends. It ends with affirmation. And that's where it came from. These are the voices of my friends speaking to themselves, language that they would need to survive.
Well, Derek, thank you. I honor your journey, and I just personally, as the sort of mom
Hmm.
of a queer guy,
Yeah.
just want to say thank you for honoring so many journeys
Yeah.
in your life. And I know the cost can be great, but I also know that you have really found your voice,
Hmm.
and I'm thankful for it. And I hope you're encouraged, and I hope that I hope so many people hear this record
Yes.
and like walk away going, you know what, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for helping me. Thanks for signal boosting and the conversation.
You are enough. Your power is as unlimited as your imagination.
You are wise. You are not alone.
You are becoming, forever becoming. You are always becoming. Focus on the things and the people that bring you joy.
Show up with your whole self. If you do not, you are withholding a gift from the world.
I'm so proud of you.
You are so brave to be authentic in a world that demands conformity. And that is your path out of suffering and into joy.
Keep breathing in and out. You are who you say you are.
The world needs you.
You matter.
You are an embodiment of possibility.
There is nothing wrong with you.
You've done it in the past. You can do it